In this video, we delve into the reasons behind the soaring prices of nuts in 2025, revealing that the situation is far more complex than mere consumer demand. As we explore various factors like climate change's impact on orchards, the escalating water conflict among growers, and persistent labor shortages during critical harvest seasons, you'll discover the multifaceted challenges affecting nut production today. Join us as we examine the intertwined issues of supply chain chaos, processing costs, and rising global export demands that collectively contribute to the nuts price spike. 1. Climate change is wreaking havoc on nut orchards. Think nuts got expensive overnight? You'd be wrong. They've been quietly climbing in price for years, but 2025 has everyone feeling the pinch at checkout. Climate extremes are hammering farmers across major growing regions, with droughts and heatwaves affecting crop productivity in several key areas including Central and Southern America and Southeast Asia. California's walnut growers are feeling this especially hard. The state's walnut crop dropped 19% to 670,000 tons following extreme weather, with only 44.4 pounds of walnuts forecast per tree in 2024, the lowest figure since 2000. The ripple effects are massive because California dominates American nut production, and when they struggle, prices nationwide shoot up. Recent research shows climate change means it takes about 3 months longer for California to recover from drought, with drought recovery probability being 25–50% lower in recent decades compared to historical records. 2. Water wars are getting real for nut growers. Here's something most people don't realize. Nuts are incredibly thirsty crops. Specialty crops like tree nuts are more vulnerable to drought than field crops and have higher value per unit of land and water, making them represent higher risk for economic loss when water demand exceeds supply. California's ongoing water crisis isn't just about swimming pools and lawns. It's fundamentally changing how expensive it is to grow your favorite almonds and pistachios. Water resource management concerns, especially in drought-prone regions, are prompting regulatory interventions. Growers are having to invest in costly new irrigation systems or drill deeper wells, and guess who ends up paying for those upgrades? You, every time you buy a bag of mixed nuts. During recent droughts, continued irrigation of tree nuts has come at the expense of fallowing field crops, with higher net revenues per unit of water and threat of capital loss from not irrigating trees driving these expensive decisions. 3. Labor shortages are hitting harvest season hard. Labor challenges were cited by 23% of nut growers in recent surveys, with labor, water and energy costs significantly impacting operations in 2024. Alongside high input costs for fuel that further squeezed margins. The nut industry relies heavily on seasonal workers for both harvesting and processing, but immigration policies and pandemic aftereffects have made finding workers much harder. Extracting the nuts is incredibly labor-intensive, and this drives prices up, with pine nut pickers having to climb up trees using ladders and hang on trees to drop nuts to the ground, requiring months of professional training. Even for nuts that aren't as labor-intensive as pine nuts, the shortage of experienced agricultural workers means farms are paying higher wages to attract people willing to do physically demanding work. Rising expenses including labor costs, equipment and inputs are stressing growers with mounting financial pressures, and these increased costs contribute directly to challenges in maintaining profitability. 4. Supply chain chaos hasn't gone away. Remember when everything was supply chain issues during the pandemic? Well, for nuts, those problems never really ended. Nut supply networks are frequently intricate, involving several parties including growers, processors, distributors, and retailers, making it difficult to effectively manage complex supply networks while upholding quality requirements. Equipment shortages and labor issues created delays and bottlenecks in transportation during harvest, though some growers benefited from improved logistics and storage options. Processing facilities are still dealing with capacity constraints, which creates bottlenecks that drive up costs. When a walnut processing plant in California runs behind schedule, it affects prices all the way to your local grocery store. The global nature of the nut trade makes things even more complicated. Most pine nuts in the United States are exported from China, which produces 8.1 megatons yearly and accounts for approximately 64% of global exports. Transportation costs have surged, and when shipping delays hit major ports, nut prices feel the impact immediately. 5. Tree nuts take forever to mature. Unlike vegetables that grow in a few months, tree nuts are a long-term commitment that's incredibly expensive to establish. Pine nut trees have a maturing period of 10 to 40 years, compared to almond trees which take 2 to 4 years to harvest, making them slow-growing and very attractive but requiring patience. This creates a unique supply problem. When demand spikes, farmers can't just plant more trees and expect results next season. We could produce an amazing pine nut here, but it would take 25 years to get an orchard really well established. It wouldn't be profitable for another 25 years, with land costs and taxes making the investment incredibly challenging. Even for faster-growing nut trees, establishing new orchards requires massive upfront investments that won't pay off for years. This means when existing orchards face problems from disease, drought, or development pressure, replacement supply takes a very long time to come online. 6. Processing costs have exploded. Getting nuts from tree to shelf involves way more steps than most people realize, and each step has gotten more expensive. Raw nuts generally tend to be less expensive than roasted nuts due to additional processing involved, with roasting requiring time, labor, and energy that increases overall production cost, plus seasoning or salting adds further value and increases price. Energy costs for drying, roasting, and packaging have surged alongside everything else. Food safety regulations require more testing and quality control measures, which add to processing expenses. It's critical to maintain consistent quality during production and processing phases, making it difficult to maintain quality standards when there are differences in nut size, moisture content, and contamination issues. Processing facilities also need specialized equipment that's expensive to maintain and replace. When a hulling machine breaks down during peak season, the repair costs and lost time get passed along to consumers through higher prices. 7. Export demand is driving up domestic prices. American nuts aren't just competing with domestic snackers anymore. They're competing with the entire world. Increases in exports, slowdowns in acreage planted, and Federal Reserve interest rate cuts are putting upward pressure on nut prices, with expectations that prices will increase through 2024 to 2025. Countries like China and India have developed massive appetites for American-grown nuts, particularly almonds and pistachios. Since India and China are absorbing large portions of crops, they want to get in now with lower prices. This international demand means domestic prices get pulled up to compete with what foreign buyers are willing to pay. When a Chinese importer offers top dollar for California almonds, American grocery stores have to match those prices or miss out on supply. The strong dollar has helped make American nuts more competitive internationally, but it also means domestic consumers are essentially competing with export markets for the same product. 8. Pest and disease pressure is getting worse. Recent industry surveys show pests were cited as challenges by 33% of growers, ranking as the top production challenge. Climate change isn't just bringing droughts, it's also creating perfect conditions for bugs and diseases that love nut trees. Many weeds, pests, and fungi thrive under warmer temperatures, wetter climates, and increased CO2 levels, with U.S. farmers currently spending more than $11 billion per year to fight weeds alone. The 2023 tree nut crops were impacted by disease and insects, with growers facing the Carpophilus beetle, codling moth, and now, navel orangeworm. Fighting these problems requires expensive pesticides, more frequent applications, and sometimes completely replacing infected trees. When a pecan orchard gets hit by a new strain of disease, the entire crop can be lost, and recovery takes years. Navel orangeworm is the primary pest concern for both pistachios and almonds and is always a concern, while mealybug is another pest that growers actively monitor. 9. Energy costs are crushing small growers. Nut farming is incredibly energy intensive, from irrigation pumps running 24/7 to refrigerated storage keeping harvests fresh. Growers reported that weather and environmental factors, including droughts and hurricanes, were driving up fuel and production costs significantly. Diesel fuel for tractors, electricity for processing equipment, and natural gas for drying operations have all seen major price increases. Small family farms are getting squeezed the hardest because they can't negotiate better energy rates like large commercial operations. Market saturation drove prices down while high input costs for fuel and labor further squeezed margins, forcing some growers to operate at a loss or reduce staff. When energy costs spike, smaller growers sometimes can't afford to properly dry and store their harvests, leading to quality problems that reduce the overall supply of premium nuts. Some are even considering getting out of nut farming entirely, which reduces competition and drives prices higher for everyone else. 10. Storage and transportation infrastructure is outdated. America's nut infrastructure was built for a different era, and now we're paying the price for decades of underinvestment. Volume and prices reflect weekly marketing and supply chain conditions which can be affected by various factors including pests, weather, imports, exports, retail promotions, and labor disruptions. Refrigerated storage facilities are expensive to build and maintain, but nuts need climate-controlled environments to stay fresh. Many older facilities are energy hogs that cost a fortune to operate, while newer efficient facilities require massive capital investments. Transportation is another bottleneck. Specialized trucks for hauling nuts are in short supply, and railroad infrastructure in agricultural areas hasn't kept up with demand. The nuts take quite a globe-trotting journey before they're ready for consumption, with a significant portion of in-shell pine nuts from top-producing countries being exported to China for processing and then re-exported. When hurricanes damage port facilities or winter storms shut down mountain passes, the entire supply chain backs up and prices spike. You've probably noticed nuts getting pricier at the store, but the real shock might be realizing this trend is just getting started. With climate change accelerating and infrastructure costs mounting, that expensive bag of almonds might actually be a bargain compared to what's coming. What surprised you most about what's really driving nut prices through the roof?